I, 28F, have been eagerly counting down the days until my dream wedding with my fiancé, Mark, 30M. Mark and I first met in college, but we were just friends then. It was only when we bumped into each other years later, after our graduation, at a mutual friend's party, that we started chatting again and eventually became a couple. We have been together for 4 amazing years. To give a bit of context, Mark and I are polar opposites when it comes to dating. Back in college, Mark was this guy everyone knew to be a player. You know, the charming type who had been through a bunch of relationships, leaving a trail of broken hearts. It was kind of his thing, and he enjoyed the whole bad boy image. He liked staying in touch with his exes even after their breakups. On the other hand, I had a simpler love life before Mark. There was just this one guy I had dated back in college. After we called it quits, I decided to cut all ties with my ex. I have never believed in staying friends after a breakup, so it was a clean break for me. When Mark and I started officially dating, it was a surprise to his friends who knew him as the cool, detached dude. Suddenly, he was all about commitment, or at least that's what it seemed like. It was like he flipped a switch and decided to give the whole relationship thing a serious shot. My drama from my past relationship made me appreciate the fresh start with Mark, who, despite his playboy history, seemed genuinely into making things work between us. We did have one minor glitch in our relationship though. I remember 6 months into my relationship, a woman had tried to reach out to me on Instagram saying she wanted to tell me something about Mark. I was a bit hesitant but decided to hear her out. She revealed that Mark had initiated inappropriate conversations with her, asking for explicit photos. I was taken aback and immediately confronted him. Despite his attempts to lie his way out, I stood my ground. Eventually, he confessed, blaming it on being intoxicated, and pleaded for my forgiveness. It shook me to the core, and I contemplated ending the relationship right then. However, his persistent apologies and tears made me reconsider, and I reluctantly warned him against repeating such actions. Beyond this incident, our dating life for the last 4 years has been joyful. We have shared laughter, built memories, and faced life's ups and downs together. Mark always surprised me with thoughtful gifts and planned romantic dates. Our connection grew stronger, and despite the rocky start, we found comfort and happiness in each other's company. The incident became a distant memory as we navigated the complexities of life as a couple, and for a while, it seemed like we were on the path to a happily ever after. 2 months ago, Mark proposed to me while we were in Africa. The proposal was a moment straight out of a romantic movie. Underneath the African stars, with the sound of the wilderness around us, he nervously stumbled through his words, confessing his love and how I had changed his perspective on relationships. Mark dropped to one knee and with a shaky hand, he pulled out the most beautiful ring I'd ever seen. It was simple, heartfelt, and genuine. I couldn't help but say yes with tears of joy streaming down my face. As the wedding preparations kicked into high gear, my days were a whirlwind of excitement and anticipation. I immersed myself in the joyous chaos of finding the perfect wedding dress, meticulously crafting our guest list, and selecting the best wedding invitation that would make our day uniquely ours. Meanwhile, Mark was in charge of planning our dream honeymoon. He seemed genuinely thrilled about it, poring over several travel brochures and sharing his visions for our romantic getaway. Little did I know, while I was happily absorbed in the wedding details, something sinister was unfolding behind the scenes. As the wedding date drew nearer, I started noticing Mark spending more and more time on his phone. I even caught him smiling a few times, but whenever I asked him about it, he would say it was just an Instagram reel. We used to have these sweet date nights, but he started drifting into his phone, making me feel like I was talking to a screen instead of my fiancé. So, one night during a cozy dinner, I finally blurted out, "Is something up, Mark?" I saw a flicker of hesitation in his eyes, like he was hiding something. Mark immediately dismissed my concerns, telling me I was overthinking and stressing for no reason. He made me feel like I was being irrational, questioning my instincts. Mark even went on to say that I always find a way to overanalyze things and create problems where there are none. Hearing his words, I was left wondering if I was indeed just paranoid. But deep down, the unease lingered, and I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was off. I decided to ignore my instincts and brushed it off, attributing it to wedding stress and the natural pre-wedding jitters. Yesterday, while Mark was out, I opened his laptop to check out our travel itinerary. He and I had decided to have our honeymoon in a tropical paradise. This was a place that had long been on our bucket list, hence we were quite excited. While I was printing out the itinerary so I could go through it later, I saw him getting a text message from someone named Boss 2. My curiosity got the best of me, leading me to open the message and unveil an inappropriate picture from a woman I recognized all too well. Despite Mark's misleading contact name, she wasn't his boss, she was a coworker of his named Martha. I had met her before at one of their office parties. Staring at that image, I felt a mix of shock and disbelief, but it got even worse when I started scrolling up on the messages. The exchanges between Mark and his coworker, who he deceptively labeled as Boss 2, were filled with messages of how much they loved each other, making fun of me, and discussing intimate details about our relationship. Mark had even told her about my parents, which is a very touchy subject for me. There were multiple explicit pictures that they had sent to each other, and it seemed like they had been having this affair since the past 1 year. It was a gut-wrenching reality to see the concrete proof that Mark was having an affair with this woman. What intensified the pain was the awareness that she, too, was married. I had met her husband, who was a genuinely nice guy and was probably oblivious to the fact that his wife was having an affair with my fiancé. It was challenging to comprehend the heartlessness exhibited by both her and Mark. Having a secret relationship for so long without anyone finding out felt like a callous betrayal of trust. As I read further into the messages, my hands trembled, and my heart sank. Martha spilled to Mark how she could not stomach the thought of seeing our honeymoon pictures, not wanting to witness him with anyone else. Mark, in response, reassured her, claiming he belonged only to her, so those pictures meant nothing. She kept questioning why he wanted to marry me, and he bluntly said he had been with me for so long that he was just comfortable staying with me. In response, Martha shared that it was the same with her husband. She had stuck around because he could give her everything she had ever desired. They kept chatting about how adeptly they had concealed their affairs, convinced we would never find out. Shockingly, they had also planned to meet during our honeymoon. She had somehow persuaded her husband to vacation at the same destination we were heading to. The plan was for them to act surprised upon seeing us and then find a way to secretly meet up. I didn't even realize, but tears were streaming down my face by this time. The pain felt heavy in my chest, making it hard to catch my breath. I decided to take screenshots of all their messages from last year. The rest of the day I walked around in a daze, their betrayal echoing in my thoughts. I just did not know how to confront him regarding this. To make matters worse, Mark called me in the evening with an excuse that he had to work late. This call was the final blow, crushing the last shreds of hope in my already broken heart. I lay in our bed the entire night, consumed with emotions as I continued to read their messages from the screenshots I had taken on my phone. My initial shock slowly started turning into a blend of anger and sadness. I couldn't fathom how Mark could betray our relationship, especially as we were on the brink of celebrating our love. Planning our romantic getaway while he secretly schemed with his affair partner felt like a harsh twist of fate. I decided that I had enough of this and wanted him to feel what I was feeling. Revenge brewed in my mind as I pondered the perfect way to turn the tables on Mark. Mark returned late at night and I pretended to be asleep so I didn't have to bother talking to him. This morning, the first thing on my agenda was tracking down Martha's husband on Facebook. I sent him a message, asking for a meetup to discuss something crucial about Martha. I emphasized the need for discretion, and I'm hoping he keeps it from her. As I jot down this post on Reddit, I'm eagerly awaiting his response. Mark has no idea what I am planning for him. He has no inkling that I am about to reveal his affair to everyone, stripping away the last shreds of his dignity. I plan to forward Martha and Mark's messages, not their explicit pictures, to each of his co-workers on their work group chat, via Mark's phone. I am going to make sure everyone knows why I am going to call it quits. For now, I have chosen to play along with Mark, acting as though I am oblivious to his deceitful plans. So Reddit, do you think my plan is taking things too far? Will I be the asshole if I expose Mark's affair as well as ruin Martha's relationship with her husband? Update 1. Martha's husband Jack replied back to me on Facebook. I had been on edge for a couple of hours waiting for his response. When he asked why I wanted to meet, I spun a little white lie about planning a birthday surprise for Martha. Given that people knew my husband and Martha were close, I prayed that he would not see through my lie and agree to meet up. We ended up meeting at a cafe near his workplace. When we sat down with our coffees, he straight up called out my lie, pointing out that Martha's birthday wasn't around the corner. I sheepishly smiled remorsefully and insisted that it was crucial for us to meet as it involved my fiancé and his wife. His brow furrowed in confusion and I pulled out my phone to show him all the screenshots I had taken from Mark's laptop. He went through all of them and was just as shocked as I was. I continued to explain everything, spilling the beans about Mark and Martha's affair. Jack's jaw tightened, and he just shook his head in disbelief. He asked me how long I had known about this, to which I informed him that I had just found out about it last night. I could see the hurt in his eyes, like he couldn't believe his own wife would do this. I questioned Jack about their upcoming vacation plans, and he gave me this puzzled look. I laid it out for him, revealing that my fiancé and Martha had schemed this whole thing. I told him how they wanted all of us to end up at the same place. All this to pull off a fake surprise and actually have a secret rendezvous. The whole thing left Jack even more bewildered and I could see his face change colors. I could sense Jack going through the same roller coaster of emotions that I had been on, and I felt sorry for the both of us. Jack looked up at me, sharing how he had no clue Martha could pull off something like this behind his back. Then, Jack dropped a bomb. They were trying for a baby, planning to move to a bigger house and start fresh. He revealed that he had noticed a slight change in her tone and her attitude, but had attributed it to work stress as she often stayed out late working. I opened up to Jack, sharing how Mark had been pulling the same act with me since last year, glued to his phone, and when I called him out, he tried to mess with my head and gaslight me. Jack then asked me what I planned to do next with the evidence I had collected. I laid out my plan honestly, explaining how it involved his wife too. I said I would keep Martha's name out if he wasn't cool with it, but Jack surprised me. He shook his head, saying Martha betrayed me too by getting involved with my fiancé, so I had every right to spill the beans. I nodded my head in agreement and asked Jack about his next course of action. He shared that, after seeing their convo, he could not see a future with Martha anymore. He had always wanted to start a family, but what she had done to him, he did not want her to be the mother of his children. It was clear he was gearing up for a divorce. Jack requested all the screenshots I had taken through AirDrop so he could show them to his lawyer. Before he left, we exchanged numbers. Jack gave me a heads up to first break up with my fiancé before I revealed his dirty truth in case he reacted violently. I assured him that was my plan, as I was planning to quietly move out of our house while my fiancé was at work tomorrow, leaving him to return to an empty place. I have got a lot on my plate in the next few days as I put my plan into action. I will circle back with an update once everything's in motion. Update 2. I know it's been a few weeks since my last update, and I would like to reassure everyone that I am perfectly fine and I am doing well. Everything went well as I had planned. First, I moved out of our house while Mark was at work. I asked my brothers to help and we quickly moved my stuff to my parents' place. Everyone had already been informed about the situation, so they were more than supportive. I thought about leaving a note for Mark explaining the breakup, but in the end, I chose to depart without any explanation. I wanted him to feel the weight of my absence, tossing and turning at night, questioning why I left. I removed the engagement ring and put it on his dining table as I wanted nothing to do with him anymore. I removed all our pictures from social media and blocked him from everywhere. Even though I was heartbroken and knew that I would eventually break down crying again, my parents comforted me, emphasizing that discovering the truth before marriage spared me from enduring this pain and heartbreak later on. Their words resonated, and I found solace in the agreement that, tough as it was, knowing the reality now was a silver lining for my future. True to form, Mark began bombarding my parents with a barrage of calls and text messages, inquiring about my whereabouts. I could envision him arriving home, finding all my things vanished, and the ring left on the dining table. He kept begging my parents to give him a chance to explain to me. My parents, who have always been protective of me, stood firm in shielding me from Mark's attempts to reach out. They made it clear to him that there was nothing he could do to mend the relationship. My father, with a firm resolve, expressed his disappointment and instructed Mark not to show up in front of him ever again. Imagining Mark's fear, I couldn't help but smile, knowing he had always been scared of my 6-foot-tall ex-military father. Mark's attempts to contact me ceased after my dad's stern warning. Little did he know, this was just the beginning of his troubles. I was well aware that Mark rarely used his home laptop, so I had cleverly scheduled a mass email to be sent the next day, spilling the beans to everyone in his office about his year-long affair with Martha. The email included some screenshots of their conversations poking fun at coworkers and their boss, which made it even more interesting. This was my way of turning the tables and revealing the truth. As you can imagine, the email was sent as scheduled and turned Mark's life upside down. He must have been shocked to realize that I had uncovered his affair. The truth unfolding in that email was probably a jolt he hadn't seen coming. His coworkers must have been shocked and in disbelief as well after opening the email and seeing all the screenshots. One of his coworkers, Sarah, who had been my Facebook friend for a long time, took the initiative to reach out to me so she could check in with me. It was she who informed me that the explicit content of their conversations, especially the mockery of coworkers and the boss, had them questioning Mark's character. Mark's boss, upon discovering the extent of the inappropriate conversations about her, was understandably furious. The revelation came not just as a personal betrayal to everyone but as a professional scandal that shook the entire workplace. Mark, desperate and fuming, reached out to my parents, but the damage had already been done. The email, sent from his own laptop, left him with no way to prove I was behind it. The explicit discussions about coworkers that Mark had engaged in with Martha were now coming back to haunt him. The news slowly spread like wildfire, and the professional fallout was severe. In the days that followed, Sarah kept me updated, sharing that Mark faced the brunt of the boss's wrath. The shunning within the workplace intensified, with colleagues distancing themselves. Mark and Martha found themselves isolated in the aftermath of their exposed affair. The ultimate blow came when the boss, deeming their actions as professional misconduct, decided to terminate both Mark and Martha. I could not help but feel a strange mix of satisfaction and empathy as I learned about the repercussions he faced in the wake of his actions. Meanwhile, Jack reached out to me as well. He informed me that Martha was fuming and angry that I had exposed the truth about them. He, in turn, gave her a dose of reality by serving her with divorce papers. She must have been shocked, especially given the workplace drama she was still reeling from. Fuming and taken aback, she tried reaching out to Jack, demanding an explanation and a chance to salvage what was left of their relationship. However, Jack, unwavering in his decision, stood firm. He cited the betrayal revealed in their conversations, the affair with Mark, as the breaking point. With the truth finally out in the open, there's a newfound sense of lightness and self-assurance. Despite the relief, some days are undeniably tough. There are moments when I find myself sitting in my washroom, tears flowing for hours as I grapple with the emotional weight of my breakup with Mark. It's a process, a mix of healing and confronting the pain, but transparency has become my anchor in navigating through the storm of emotions. Update 3. It's been 3 months since my last update, and I want to express my gratitude to everyone who sent supportive messages during this challenging time. Though I may not be able to reply to each one, please know that I've read all your messages, and your support means a lot to me. To cope with the aftermath of the breakup with Mark, I've been attending therapy. It's been a valuable tool in helping me navigate the emotional complexities and find a path toward healing. Each day brings its own set of challenges, but talking my emotions out with my therapist has been a therapeutic process and has been instrumental in my journey forward. I did meet up with Mark after he showed up in front of my parents' house, pleading for a chance to explain himself. I reluctantly let him in, not wanting the neighbors to be disturbed. Mark started explaining why he had the affair, talking about feeling vulnerable and the emotions that led him to betray our relationship. He tried to justify it by saying Martha had seduced him, and he resisted for as long as he could. Mark expressed shock when he found out I knew about the affair and questioned why I never confronted him. I told him it was pretty entitled of him to expect me to wait for his explanation while he was fooling around with his coworker. I made it clear I didn't need an explanation because I didn't want to be with him anymore. Whatever he tried to say didn't matter when I had no interest in anything he had to explain. Mark was about to continue, but I cut him off, saying I didn't want to hear anything more from him. Mark looked taken aback, maybe expecting a different response. He urged me to reconsider my decision and not forget the 4 years we had spent together. I stood my ground, telling him that I could never trust him again. He mentioned how he hated returning to an empty house and planned to move back to his hometown after losing his job. While a hint of remorse crossed my mind, I swiftly reminded myself that all of this was a consequence of his own actions. He tried to push for more conversation, but I shut it down, emphasizing that I was done and didn't want any more explanations or updates about his life. After he realized that I wasn't going to budge, he left, and I closed the door behind him, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. The conversation with Mark served as the closure we needed. I am glad he hasn't attempted to reach out since then. Apart from therapy, I have been putting in effort to secure a new job. My goal is to achieve financial independence, allowing me to move out of my parents' place and into a space of my own. I am grateful for the unwavering support from my family. My brothers make it a point to meet up with me on weekends, ensuring that I am doing okay. Living with my parents again has been a positive change, bringing a sense of familiarity I haven't experienced since college. As I navigate this period of transition, I find myself appreciating the way my life has unfolded. It's a reminder never to doubt my instincts again, which proved to be a reliable guide. This experience, though difficult, has become a catalyst for self-discovery and resilience. Moving forward, I am determined to find solace in the familiar while carving out a new path forward.